Welcome, everybody, to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. I'm your host, Ross Benjamin of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. And it is Tuesday, September 5th. Folks, we're discussing the NFL today. It's NFL Week 1. And boy, oh boy, we're looking forward to that. And I got some special guests today that will be with me, I believe, going forward every Tuesday. And that's Mr. Chip Chirimbes. You could find him over at gamblersworld.net, as well as the other guy, Mr. Paul Bovi. So, gentlemen, without further ado, Chip, I'll start with you. How's it going?
That's doing great as long as college football tees it up every weekend. We close with Duke and Florida State, who just annihilated LSU. A lot of people thought LSU had Final Four aspirations. I think those are over.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. And Brian Kelly makes some statements to the media that are very controversial and taken probably way too much out of context. But in any event, Paul, how was your weekend and how you doing, my friend?
Well, another.
I can hear you.
Another shocker last night as Clemson went down to Duke. Surprisingly, and it wasn't much of a contest. But look, personally, I had a tough. Call it a push on that Liberty Bowling Green game. Somehow we survived 5 turnovers, 5 interceptions, and still managed to get our money back. It was disappointing because we were running that clock down, and it was an easy cover. And then lo and behold, that 5th INT, which put the kibosh on the win. But it was all in all a good weekend. We had Virginia Tech. They got the cover, and we're looking forward to the NFL starting up on Thursday and a great weekend of college football.
Folks, we are sponsored by Gamblers World, and gamblersworld.com and gamblersworld.net are the two sections of the company, and gamblersworld.net is where you'll find 10 of the finest handicappers in the country, including us 3 and 7 more great prognosticators. And also gamblersworld.com is where you'll find an array and bevy of videos when it comes to the sports betting world, including our podcast, the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. And folks, if you have not subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. We've had over 600 subscribers in the last 28 days, and we want to thank each and every one of you. We sincerely appreciate that, because without you, this show doesn't survive and isn't as successful as it's become. So, but those of you who haven't, you'll see a WC button right on the bottom right-hand corner of your video screen, and you click on that. That'll get you subscribed. If you're watching on your mobile device, you'll see a black subscribe button right underneath your video box. Just click on that. And I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, folks, and that's go into YouTube settings and hit that notification alert bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our sports betting podcasts going up on this channel. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Chip, it's week 1 in the NFL. Not a whole lot of data to go on, obviously, as far as past results go. A lot of projections and a lot of conjecture going into the season for each and every team. Yeah. How do you approach it? I mean, everybody approaches it. Seems like somebody has a unique spin on how they approach week 1 in the NFL. Maybe you have the same. I don't know. You tell us.
It's not much different than I do any other week, Ross. And I look for anomalies in the point spread and the number, something that stands out as to be an oddity. Why is this number here when I believe that everyone else projected to be it somewhere else? And I try and find out why, and then take advantage of it if I can. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's not all that different, because I'm more of a numbers guy than a players guy. And I think when they put the numbers out there, all that stuff about who's hurt and who's playing is already factored in.
Yeah.
So, that's how I approach it. And it's really not that much different opening week. And I'm looking for a big week this first Sunday. I think there's a plethora of games out there that I like. And we're going to have to weed them down and get the top 3 or 4.
That's Mr. Chip Chirimbes, and you could find him at gamblersworld.net. And like he said, he's going to have some action going on
Yep.
Sunday in the NFL and probably on Thursday night as well. Paul, same question to you. You know, and Chip brought up a point before we get going with your answer. I mispronounced a name on my last show, my college football show, and the Colorado Buffalo contingency of fans were all over me. And it's like, look, folks, if you want to be concerned about players that much, Chip just told you, it's all factored into the line. If you want to hold me on my pronunciation or calling a guy out of position, that's fine. My job is to beat the number. And that's what I've done pretty well over the years. And that's what these guys do as well. If you're worried about players, play fantasy. Paul, your answer?
Well, first of all, there's certain trends that have been prominent in week one. For example, division home dogs. So you have to look at that. They've been historically very successful. And I think the lines in week one generally tend to be more conservative. Lesser teams are valued higher, and sometimes the better teams are valued lower. Henceforth, the spreads are tighter than they would be if you took these out 4 or 5 weeks. So I think you have to really look at, assess the teams, assess the changes over last year, the injury factors, because that's not always factored in the line, nor are the free agent acquisitions. So I just think there's some opportunity in week one that may not present themselves down the road, but it's also guesswork too. You just don't know how these teams, players, especially the newbies, are going to perform. And we have several rookie quarterbacks this week, and it's a mystery as to how they're going to come out and perform, in this inaugural game for them.
Very good. So there you have two different takes on how they look at week one. Pretty similar when it comes down to it. And, the other thing I like to look at, because I got the utmost respect for the odds makers. They're the best at what they do. And if you don't respect the odds makers, folks, that's your first mistake. Right. You're going to lose. If you think you know more than the odds maker, you are the stupidest human being on earth. I don't know whatever way to put it. But, I like looking too at the NFL regular season win totals on each team and then compare them to week one odds. And sometimes you'll find the odds maker is telling you something in that regard. If you couple the two and you have one team, for example, that's projected to go over 9.5 regular season wins, and they're playing at home, and they're somewhere between -2.5 and +2.5, might be something you want to consider. So try to couple the two together. And I always contend that if we have any type of advantage, now I respect the odds makers. I don't fear them. There's a big difference. If we have any advantage in the NFL against the odds maker, it's going to be early on, because I think Paul was pointing in this direction is as the season progresses, the lines get razor sharp, much more difficult. And if you don't believe me, at Cappers, where am I? Sports Capping, where I get monitor, 79-35, documented. If I need to prove it to you, I could send you the records. 79-35 NFL regular season record in the month of September. And that's good for 65%, folks. So when I put my money where my mouth is, and obviously the proof is in the pudding. Anyway, enough of that. Take the star off my forehead and put it on your two foreheads, and let's discuss the games at hand. Paul, you're going to look at Cincinnati and Cleveland. Interesting matchup here, divisional matchup, and the status of Joe Burrow, and a divisional matchup in game one. And where are you going with this?
Chip, I'm sorry, Ross, Chip, I believe that this is a situation where you have to buy low and sell high. Now, we all know Deshaun Watson had his troubles last year, major distraction coming back into the lineup, and he had sat out 2021. But prior to that, in 2020, this guy put up insane numbers, 70% completions, almost 500 yards, 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. And he had similar numbers, not quite as good, in the 2 years prior. Now, this is a Cleveland team, a lot of stability on the offensive line. All 5 guys returned: Bitonio, Willis, Pokic at center. Then you have a running back, 1,500 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, longest 41 yards. And they took care of the Bengals last year. 32-13 was one of those games at home. They held Joey B down. In fact, Joey B, in the 2 games that they played last year, 43 for 68 in terms of completions to attempts. But in terms of yardage, it was just a shade over 470 yards. So they really held his yards per attempt down. Jamar Chase sat out that 32-13 game. And then the prior year, 41-16, they took care of business in Cincinnati. And I think Cincinnati has some issues to contend with. Offensive line may go through a period of adjustment. They added Orlando Brown. Their running game is not great. Joe Mixon is at best a 3.7 to 3.8 yard per carry guy. I think he was 3.9 last year. He had 1 game, 22 carries, $153. My concern is the Cleveland defense, where Denzel Ward has a concussion. He had 15 passes defended last year. A couple other guys on the injury list, but they're going to play, including Myles Garrett. And I just think this is a situation. It's one of those division dogs where you got to grab the points here. I think the Bengals early on may struggle. Again, I'll point to the offensive line. I'll point to the history of these 2 teams where Cleveland has been successful. You got to grab the points with the division dog. Take Cleveland.
There you go. Cleveland plus 2.5 against Cincinnati from Mr. Paul Bovi. Friendly reminder, folks, if you go over to gamblersworld.com or gamblersworld.net, you'll see a big box up there. It's an NFL Progressive Pick'em contest, absolutely free to join. All you have to do, click on that dialog box, and it will take you to a registration form, and guaranteed minimum $500 for first place. So good contest there, folks. And the best part about it, the entry fee is free. So I don't know why you wouldn't partake in it. Anyway, Chip.
Yeah.
All right. So the Packers and the Bears, historic rivalry in the NFL. What do you got for us right now? We see the Bears at -1 and 43.
I like this game. I really do. The old black and blue division. I don't know if you'd call it that anymore. Couple of interesting factors coming into this one. Not only the quarterback matchup, which is always intriguing. You have Justin Fields, who ran for 1,143 yards last year, but only threw for over 200 yards twice. And one of those times was the season high 254 against the Packers when they were in the midst of a 10-game losing streak to close the season. The Bears, they won the opening game over the 49ers last year, 19-10. Go figure that. And they were 2-1 at one time in the year, Russ. But they just had the absolute worst defense in the NFL. Last season, they gave up 463 points. They have the absolute worst passing game in the NFL, but they did lead the NFL in rushing with Justin Fields leading the way. And this Khalil Herbert, I believe his name, had a limited number of carries, but he averaged almost 6 yards a carry, 5.9, which was a high for the league. And it's obvious Chicago is going to try and run the ball, and it looks like they should be running the ball with Fields but this is an NFL game of passing, and I think that the Green Bay Packers believe Jordan Love is ready. The Packers have started slowly the last 2 years. Last year, they got beat by Minnesota 23-17. The year before that, they got clobbered by New Orleans. If you remember the relax game when Aaron Rodgers comes out and says relax to the media. And I think they want to get off to a better start. I think they have a fresher attitude without the drama that Rodgers brings and without the luggage and everything else that comes with it. No doubt he was a great player, but last year wasn't his finest. And they beat this team twice with Rodgers not having the finest of seasons. So maybe if Jordan Love can just have a mediocre season, they'll end up beating him again. But I think Packers are expecting a lot out of Love this year. I think they really think he's good, are going to make it, as opposed to Trey Lance, who I always kept a look at both these guys at the same time, wondering which one was going to make it or get a chance to play. And 49ers obviously gave up on Lance, and the Packers are going full bore with Love. And I'm thinking the Packers here are the better team. I think they got incentive. They got reasons to win. Chicago Bears only won 3 games last year. And, the Packers had closed the season. They had won 4 in a row. And then they went to that game against Detroit, losing 20-16, which had them bound for the playoffs if they won. So very disappointing off of that. I think it leaves a sour taste in the public's mouth. I think that's the last thing they saw and they remember. And Rodgers being out of there now. I'm going to take Green Bay. I think Green Bay's the side here.
So Chip Chirimbes likes Green Bay plus the 1 over Chicago. And also Paul likes the Cleveland Browns plus 2.5 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Paul, Jordan Love, the jury's out on him, obviously. But, the last 2 times the Packers had a backup quarterback that sat and watched, their names are Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And those guys fared out pretty good in their career. But, I still scratch in my head at making him the number 1 pick a couple of years back after his senior season at Utah State, in which he threw 16 interceptions.
I thought it was 17, but
okay, it was a high number. So
it was a high number. Let's split the difference at 16.5. Okay.
All right, good. And so I
hope it goes under that this year.
Yeah, well, I think it will. And again, that wasn't a very good Utah State team in a senior year. But he contributed to that with those interceptions. But we'll see. I mean, give the kid a chance. And you like Green Bay, and who could disagree with you? Maybe some Chicago fans out there. Who knows? In any event, I'm going to take
3 games. The Bears won 3 games last year.
Yeah, and that takes me to this. I'm taking the Las Vegas Raiders, in the Denver Broncos game on Sunday. Right now, Denver is a 3.5-point favorite, and the total's 44. And this goes hand in hand to what you're mentioning, Chip. You got a team like Denver who won 5 games last year.
Yeah.
5-12, and they're better than a field goal favorite in this contest. Now, yes, I know Sean Payton's there, but he's still taking over a team that went 5-12. And he's got to change the culture there. And we saw some of the reactions he got from not only the front office, but also from the players in terms of how he likes to run things off the field. So we'll see early on the effect that Peyton's going to have on Denver. I think it's going to take time for them to grow. And here you go, Chip. When you got a division away underdog of 6 or less, like the Bears were, and the Raiders are, and they're playing in their season opener against a team that won 5 games or less the year before. Denver won 5, Chicago won 3. Those division away dogs of 6 or less, 15-4 against the spread since 1980. All right, now you might say, okay, but Chip's only getting 1 point in that situation. Well, they're also 14-5 straight up as well.
Right.
So, good situation here. Again, I like to look at these types of lines in a game 1 and compare my 40 handicapping software and ask it, how does a team do if they're a home favorite in their opening game in a divisional matchup and they won 5 games or less the year before. And that's exactly what came up. Not only that, the Raiders have won 6 in a row in this head-to-head series, covered 5 of the 6. The Raiders 8-3 against the spread and 6-5 straight up in their last 11 as a division dog of 7 or less. 5-2 straight up in ATS in their last 7 season openers. In Denver, here's the other obstacle that Sean Payton's going to have to overcome. They've been a terrible favorite in recent years. As a matter of fact, in their last 12 games as a favorite of 6 or less, they've gone 2-10 against the spread. And they went 2-10 straight up beside as a favorite of 6 or less in their last 12. So I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm not a fan of either one of these teams. in terms of their prospects for the year. But I'm going to take the lesser of two evils here. I'm going to take the Raiders plus the 3.5 at Denver on Sunday, and that's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. Chip, any thoughts on that game whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, I know the Raiders have a history of really stomping on the Broncos, and when I saw the Broncos come up as that favorite in this situation, my first thought was like, boy, they're really giving Sean Payton a lot of respect, and they thinking Russell Wilson's going to come back and have a great year here because they, like you said, they lost 6 in a row and only covered maybe one of the last 6 against the Raiders. It's just something like, when you've got the Maloik on a team, it just, you know what I mean, right? And you just come back with it game after game, and that's the way it appears in this series. And I'm staying away from it because I'm really interested in seeing what happens with the Broncos this year with Peyton.
Yeah, the Maloik, for those of you who do not know Italian, that's Italian for hex. Anyway, Paul, does the Maloik have anything to do with how you look at this game?
Well, I think it's a shame you don't have Melvin Gordon in the lineup because then you could count on at least one fumble. Yeah, he puts the ball on the ground. I remember I lost a game last year because of a fumble by Melvin Gordon. And anyway, I guess it still sticks in my craw a little bit. But this much I will say about the Broncos, and I agree with a lot of the points you made. They spent more capital on their offensive line, and it was they were in dire need of it than any other team in the NFL. They got Powers in and McGlinchey in. And they Russell Wilson absorbed, I think, 56 sacks last year. So they don't have Jerry Jeudy, which is definitely a plus. They do have some other talent at the receiver position and some decent tight ends there. But I see your point in taking the Raiders, and historically it's been a favorable situation. But I'm looking for good things from the Broncos. I think they're going to improve because of that offensive line, but it may take a few games for them to kind of get in sync. So it sounds like a promising play, and I wish you luck on it, and I might tell you on it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. It might take a while. Out of any positional group, the offensive line, when you're trying to blend in new parts, takes the longest in terms of cohesiveness. Yeah. Now, they may end up being an excellent offensive line by the midpoint of the season, but early on, history will show that, when you try to blend in new players into an offensive line, the results usually take time to grow and the compass to go north as the season progresses. So we'll see what happens there, but an interesting point. And you're right, Paul. I mean, Denver's got some pretty good skill position players. And, you bring up 56 sacks last year on Russell Wilson. When he was with Seattle, he was one of the most sacked quarterbacks there, too, as well. And the offensive line took a lot of the blame. I mean, this guy's a mobile quarterback, So what do you make of that? I mean, is it all attributed to the offensive line? Is part of it on him or a little of both?
No, part of it is on him. He has a tendency to hold the ball a little bit long. And I think that's one thing that Sean Payton will work with him on. Yeah. Hey, Russell, you got to get rid of the ball. It's not going to fall on your offensive line, and it shouldn't fall on your offensive line here because we've brought over talent. So now they're going to do their part. Russ, you got to do your part. Dump it off if need be. Throw it away. Do whatever you have to do. But don't absorb those very damaging sacks that could, cripple a team on drives, because we all know what happens. You go from a 2nd and 6 to a 3rd and 16, and it's basically lights out.
Yeah, percentages go way, way down in terms of a conversion rate on 3rd down once you go 3rd and 10 or greater. Chip, anything you want to add before we move on?
I think you're right about the sacks with Russell holding the ball so long. When he does decide to run, if he doesn't make it past the line of scrimmage, it's considered a sack. So, he runs quite often. And if he doesn't get to the line of scrimmage, that's a sack. So, and he holds the ball long. Paulie was right about that. And it's something he tries to extend plays, and he's done it throughout his career. And, he's been really fortunate at times.
Yeah, I think you'll see a heck of a lot more production from Russell Wilson this year, just because of Sean Payton. And a small point that Paul just alluded to. Look, you're hanging on to the ball too long. Take what the defense gives you. Don't be afraid to throw to your third option, that kind of thing. So we'll see. In any event, our picks again, we're taking the the Las Vegas Raiders plus 3.5 over the Denver Broncos. That comes from me, Mr. Chip Chirimbes. He likes the Green Bay Packers plus the 1 over Dub Bears. And Paul Bovi, he's going with the Cleveland Browns plus the 2.5 at home over the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1 of the NFL. Guys, let's hear about what you may have coming up this week. Paul, I'll start with you.
Well, I've already posted a game that I really like. It's a dog. I prefer dogs. And I'll have more, but I really like this game. It's a 5-unit play, and I think you should get in there and grab this one. Last week, 1-1-1. We lost on the Michigan game. Unfortunately, the Wolverines were knocking on the door in the fourth quarter on several occasions, didn't punch it in, stopped on 4th down, and they won the game, I believe, by 27. But, we caught a win with Vatek. We caught a push with Bowling Green, a very unfortunate push, and we look for bigger and better things. I'll have some NFL plays up as well, and I'm very confident in a few of these plays, and I played them myself. I want to go on record. Last week on that Bowling Green game, it was a 10-dime play. Yeah. I played 10 dimes on it. If I put it up as a 10-dime play, I have 10 dimes. I post the tickets. If I put it up as a 5-dime play, I have 5 dimes on the game. I play every single game I give out. I do not rely on sales. I rely on winning. So get on board and ride with me because you'll make money.
And I could verify that this guy is one of the sharpest handicappers in the country, one of the sharpest bettors. If you don't believe me, when he gave out that game, it was at plus 10. That line moved down to 7.5. It closed that. So there you have it. If you want to think about a guy that could move a line by himself, Mr. Paul Bovi has been known to do that. Chip, any 10-dime plays from you that you want to throw around this week?
Well, I guess you could say every megabuck play might be considered a 10-dime play. But, Paul's known for these top plays that come through, and he doesn't throw them around he throws them around like manhole covers. You know what I mean? So you're not going to get a 10-dime play every day. Am I right, Paulie?
That is correct. I don't do that. The play I made, actually, that I have up, I played 5 on it. Okay. If I got a better number, I would have went heavier. But, the number oftentimes, and this comes up a lot, the number dictates the play.
Yeah.
If you're plus 6, you like it at a certain level. If you're plus 7, you like it more. For example, if you like the Lions at plus 7, you're going to like them a little less at plus 6. You have to.
Right.
Okay. Because games do land on 7. So the number will dictate the size of the play. And yes, Chip, that is correct. There are going to be fewer, and they're going to be fewer and far between. Sometimes they may even be more, but it's not a recurring thing that I do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, Ross, on Saturday, I have an early bird package for the college football. I already see it out there. I'm ready to go. There's 3 9:00 games that are really high profile games. Notre Dame's playing NC State, Nebraska, and I'm looking at all 3 of these games to come out, and I have an early bird special for you. But of course, in the NFL, the Megabucks on Sunday, you're going to have a 5-pack. I call it my Fab 5, led by my single strongest play, my Megabuck winner. And that'll be each and every Sunday. And maybe there might be 3 games once in a while, Ross, but that usually we're coming with 5 strong plays.
There you go. Mr. Chip Chirimbes, Mr. Paul Bovi, 2 of the sharpest handicappers in the country. And they're right here at gamblersworld.net.
I want to say something. I learned a lot from Chip along the way because I used to watch this guy on TV, and I was in awe of this guy. He is great. He was great. He still is great. Chip Chirimbes, I'm honored to be on the same.
Come on, Paulie.
No, this is absolutely true. This is absolutely true. You're one of those guys that I grew up with, and I appreciate being here. And I know you're in the long run, you're a winner. So
Thank you.
kudos to you, Chip. Great
Thank you,
career.
Paulie.
For those of you not familiar with Chip and what Paul's talking about, Chip, he was on a Dan Rather special many years ago where they looked into the sports betting world. And you were a weekly guest with Larry King on CNN, correct, Chip?
I was with CNN for 5.5 years. It wasn't Larry King, but they had a special segment coming out of Las Vegas. I had 12 minutes every Friday, and it was a great segment until Lou Dobbs got jettisoned out of there. He left CNN, and he was a big Dallas Cowboy fan. And every once in a while, here's a guy running the network, and I'd sneak in his office and go, "Cowboys are going down," So, but that was a great run, and I appreciated it. It was a lot of fun until Lou Dobbs left.
Yeah, well, Lou Dobbs is the finance guy, so
Right.
I could understand why he had some interest in what Chip liked that particular week. Anyway, you can find me at gamblersworld.net as well, folks. And right now, #1 at the site and money earned since its inception. It's still early. These guys are right on my behind. So, that's it's a fluid situation when it comes to the rankings with 10 great handicappers like that. But I mentioned 79 and 35. That's documented, folks. If you need me to provide the documentation for you, I can. That's documented at Sports Capping and in my September NFL regular season picks. In college football, coming off a 3-2 week, including last night's winner on Duke. Started the week on Thursday with a winner on Utah over the Florida Gators, much to a lot of our viewers' chagrin, because a lot of Florida Gators fans chimed in on the free pick on that game. And boy, oh boy, they couldn't have been too happy. Anyway, until the next time. Whoa, one more thing. Okay, there's a like button on the bottom of your screen there. And folks, hit that like button. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the time, the effort, the preparedness that we put into this show, and to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. Until the next time, for Chip Chirimbes, Paul Bovi, and Ross Benjamin, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care and God bless, folks.